Hi everyone, and welcome to our Q&A with Amelia Lewis, performance engineer from McLaren Racing. My name is Katie Kilroy, and my co-host is...
Hi, I'm Katherine Hardgrave. We're both in third year mechanical and manufacturing engineering in Trinity College, and we're part of Formula Trinity, Trinity's Formula student team. So I suppose just to get us started, could you just tell us a little bit about your career now and how you got to where you are?
Absolutely. First off, thanks so much for inviting me on. It's really great to be part of this, this kind of like month-long program that you're doing. So yeah, thank you very much for that. So as you said, yeah, my name's Amelia Lewis, and I am a performance engineer at McLaren Racing. I work predominantly based at the factory, working in the simulator mostly, but also supporting trackside activities from mission control, out working at the McLaren Technology Centre, following data, following live the process on track, and kind of feeding back directly to the engineers there on maybe potential performance like that we can gain, or on kind of miscorrelation in the suspension, and kind of like just a general overview of the cars on track. I have been at McLaren now for coming up to 4 years. I started there on the graduate scheme in engineering and then moved into my current role after 2.5 years. Before that, I was at university at Bath, and I was also on the Formula student team there. So I'm a big supporter of Formula student. And whilst I was at university, I also did a year in industry, which I did at Williams F1 as a stress engineer.
Very cool. Yeah, it's amazing to hear you were part of Formula student team. Woo. So, what experiences and skills did you gain from being part of Formula student team that helped you in your current career?
I think one of the best things about Formula student, and also kind of like the other projects that are available, so I know things like the Eco Marathon, and I know there's some like drone competitions as well. All of those type of projects give you something that you don't get a lot in university, which is kind of the hands-on real project, and having to manage your time and your resources and your relationships to actually produce something physical. And for me, like doing that as building a race car was just cool. And so, yeah, not only do you kind of get those practical experiences of actually working with kind of race car components, but you also kind of build that those kind of soft skills and like the teamwork aspect of it up against real deadlines, up against real problems, which you can't emulate by kind of doing a team project to kind of create something make-believe that you might do in other modules at university.
Yeah, completely. And we're so lucky to be a part of Formula Student ourselves here. It's a great experience. But is there any kind of other recommendations you'd have to get some more kind of hands-on experience for people that might want to break into the industry, maybe kind of bulk up their CV?
Yeah, absolutely. So anything that kind of gives you that advantage on real world experience, I'd say is so beneficial. So Formula Student is fantastic, but there's a lot of Formula Student teams out there. There's a lot of people who do Formula Student. And so you've also got to look at like how to kind of push yourself past just being another CV. So either taking on a bigger role within Formula Student, whether that's taking kind of like a manager or leader role within your Formula Student team, or pushing it further, kind of going into other forms of motorsport. So, you know, I know people look at F1 and, you know, they think that's motorsport, but actually there's so many series that lead up and into that. And getting hands-on experience, even if it's only for a couple of races, can be so beneficial.
Yeah, it's amazing to hear that there are like other ways of getting experience, and it's not just from a student team, especially because it's not a big thing here in Ireland, unfortunately. So what was the highlight of working like throughout? You said you went through different stages, so like from industrial placement to the graduate scheme that you're on for McLaren.
Well, for me, like Formula Student was a huge highlight for me getting in that. I think I was very fortunate that at Bath it's quite an established team, and it's, you know, we've been able to build on the success of previous years. So even though at Bath, you know, we created it was like a clean sheet design every year, you've still got the facilities that, you know, other years have made possible, and you've got that knowledge that's been passed down. So we were really fortunate that we were I think we were the first UK team to win a Formula Student competition outright. So we won FS Czech in Czech Republic, and that was just, it was amazing, because it's just, you're part of this like relatively small team. There was kind of like 30 of us who were kind of part of the core team, and to know that you've kind of put in so much. I'm sure it's the same for you guys, but like the hours you put in is like, in the chassis there is literal blood, sweat and tears from me, like actual all of those components, and to kind of see the success that's come out of that hard work was just amazing.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. So what has the highlight of your career so far been, or your biggest achievement, or your best experience? Yeah,
that's really tricky, because there's been so many. I think I've been really fortunate. Being on the graduate scheme at McLaren has opened up a lot of opportunities that are quite difficult to get into. So one example is I was actually able to race engineer one of our previous historic cars with a young driver, Tom Gamble, who had won. We used to sponsor this award, McLaren Autosport BRDC Award, and the prize for him for winning that as kind of like an up and coming British driver was to drive one of our historic McLaren cars. And I was given the opportunity to race engineer him in that position. So I was, you know, race engineering a McLaren around Silverstone. And it was a proper like pinch me moment, because that is usually something that you achieve so much later in your career. And obviously it was a one-off, you know, I'm not a race engineer yet. But to kind of get that experience at that point in my career was just like, this is mega. Like, this is what I like wanted to do when I was like a little kid watching F1, and I'm now here doing it. It was, I think that was one that's going to be hard to beat.
Yeah, definitely. Silverstone, like we get to race it on FS UK, and even being there for that, you're like, oh my God, I've made it big. It's so good.
You're like on the track and you're like, oh my God, like I watched this on TV.
Exactly. Yeah. The amount of photos we have from that start line of the lads running is unbelievable.
I love it how like all the teams are like queuing up to like have the photo there, because it's iconic.
Yeah, all our promo videos have photos from that. We went 1 year and it's everywhere, because unfortunately because of COVID we couldn't go last year, but in 2019 the photos. But the challenges you face coming so far, you said it like yourself, there is a lot to happen, like you have to do to get to your position. But there's kind of a lot more for women than for men, just because it is a male-dominated industry. What were the main obstacles that you found as a woman, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a tricky question, because it's so personal as well to everybody. You know, like I've spoken to other women in the industry who have just said, you know, like it's not been an issue for me. And I think that's completely like legitimate for them and their experience. But for me, I have definitely had cases throughout my kind of career and through university where it kind of like you're aware that things are slightly different for you than they are for like the guys that you work with. And I think a lot of that even just comes through people like joking around. So I know I had at university when I got the placement at Williams, and I was obviously like absolutely chuffed. That was kind of my first kind of step into motorsport, into F1, and I was so chuffed. And the amount of guys who said to me like, oh, well, you know, it's because you're a girl. And I was like, look at my CV. Look at my CV and tell me it's because I'm a girl. Like review my interview and tell me it's because I'm a girl. I just felt like so much that like hard work and effort that you put into stuff just kind of gets diminished by like one joke from somebody. And it actually like took me quite a while before I kind of stood up for myself, and I was like, no, like I don't care if you're joking, like I'm not okay with you saying that. And I think it's tricky, especially when, you know, most of my friends on the course were guys. you know, because it's like, obviously, like, you know, you have your solidarity with the other female engineers, but there's just so few of you that it's going to be the case that you're friends with a lot of guys. And part of me felt like I needed to be like the cool girl and like get on with the banter and like not take things too seriously. And actually, it just, when I finally was like, no, I don't like what you're saying, it was like a huge relief and like weight off me to be like, oh, no, it's okay. Like, I can stand up for myself and not alienate myself. And like the majority of the guys were understanding, and those who weren't, well, I didn't really lose out by them not wanting to talk to me too much anymore anyway. So yeah, I think it's kind of difficult to see from the outside how those like little comments and those little things pile up and can really kind of tear you down if you let it.
Yeah, completely. Like the two of us are in engineering ourselves as well, and even our team for Formula Trinity only has less than 10 girls in it, I think. So it's so inspiring to hear that you stand up for yourself, and you know, but obviously this could discourage some young women. So is there any kind of advice you would give to keep them motivated to keep going if they want to break into the motorsports industry?
Yeah, it's like, how I'm talking now is not how I spoke 10 years ago about myself as well. And I think that you have to expect that a lot of it's going to come with time and experience. And it's okay if you don't feel like you have the confidence to stand up for yourself, like right now. I think it will come. And I think you just need to seek out other women who kind of inspire you to kind of push on. Because I think if you feel like you're going at it alone, it's a lot more difficult. But I know when I was on placement, I watched a film called Misrepresentation, which was all about how like women are represented, especially in the media. And that for me was one of those moments where I'm like, okay, there are other women out there who are like breaking stereotypes. And even though it's in a different industry, it kind of got me searching for different women on social media and kind of like doing a bit more research and kind of seeing who was there who I could kind of spring off of, and who I could use to inspire me to keep going on those days where it feels like the world's like stacked up against you.
Yeah, no, it's amazing though. Like, it is something you need to be strong-willed to get through it all, and it's amazing to hear that you were, and the change is very clear. Not just that, but the change in the industry has been quite big as well in a couple of years, like even with the W Series now. How have you noticed the changes in the industry, and how do you feel about it?
I think so much of it is that it's completely unacceptable now to even have as like banter, like any form of discrimination or just kind of like hostility in the workplace. And I think companies now know they have to stand up and they have to stamp that out, because it's just not going to be tolerated. And I think especially within motorsport, I was like, so when W Series first got announced, I was kind of unsure about it. I was like, is this the right way to go? Like, segregation of men and women in motorsport, like I think everyone should race together. And I was actually really fortunate that right when it got announced, I met Jamie Chadwick at an event, and we were speaking about W Series. And obviously she then raced in it and went on to win the first series of it. And it was kind of through chatting to her that she's like, yeah, this is like another series that I can do. This is a fantastic opportunity that gives me like something else, another opportunity. And I can do this alongside kind of my other series. And I think the publicity that's come from having this standalone series, especially because this year it's going to be supporting F1 races, it's really kind of projected it into like the forefront that there are fantastic female racers out there. And like, if teams don't like capture that talent, they're going to miss out because another team's going to. So I think that's been really exciting.
Yeah, it's really interesting to hear that take on it, actually, that it's just providing more opportunities for women in the industry to get more experience. Yeah. So, and you yourself, you worked in the W Series and then went on to the Formula Series as well. So what was it like kind of changing between those two, like the work environments?
Yeah, it was terrifying, if I'm honest with you. It was W Series, I learned so much, but it was so outside my comfort zone. it was like taking like 10 steps up to kind of from where I was doing my performance engineering to all of a sudden being a race engineer, solely responsible for one car, one driver. And I felt a lot of pressure as well, because I was coming in from McLaren, and I kind of felt like I can't like let the team down, and I can't be bad at this. But at the same time, I was the least experienced race engineer there. Like, everybody else had been doing this for years. They knew this, they knew the cars really well. They'd done other series that were really similar. Some of them had worked with some of the drivers before, and I just felt completely out of my depth. It was, well, after qualifying, so my first race that I did for qualifying went really badly. And I'm going to share this now, because I think it's important that people realize, like, it's not all like shiny and great all the time. Like, I remember going to the loo and just like crying and messaging my boyfriend being like, why did I think I can do this? Like, I can't do this. And then having to go back out and like console my driver and tell her like everything was going to be fine, we were going to do great in the race tomorrow. And I learned such a huge amount from that. And obviously it would have been great to have like a Disney moment where I went and we won and everything was fantastic, but it didn't work out like that. And it took me a few weeks, maybe a few months really, to realize that I learned so much from that going not great. And it's made me a better engineer from it. But I definitely put so much pressure on myself to like go in and smash it, whereas actually like that was very unlikely to happen. And I think it really gave me like a lot of humility and like humbled me a lot to kind of then, when I went back for my second race, kind of be in a much better headspace with it all and know that I was there to learn. I was capable of doing a good job. I just needed to like take the pressure off myself a little bit to achieve that.
Yeah, it's definitely true that you learn more from your failures, and you definitely did. It's something it's hard to accept though, like failures you never want.
Absolutely. And it feels like at the time it's like the worst thing ever, and it feels like it's going to be like devastating for your career. And I thought, I was like, oh my God, they're going to tell me not to come back. They're going to like, I was like, McLaren's going to see this and McLaren's going to be like, oh my gosh, like she's ruined our reputation. And actually for everybody else, it was not that big a deal. But for me, it just felt like, I'd been given this opportunity and I'd ruined it. Whereas actually I hadn't. I'd learned a huge amount, and I'd kind of given it my all and I'd thrown myself into it. It's just that sometimes motorsport sucks. Like sometimes like you're gonna lose. And I think it's making sure that you capture all of those learnings and kind of take all of that on board. That will mean that next time you're gonna do a bit better.
Yeah, no, it's amazing to hear as well. Like you've such a vivid example of it too, that you can't get any more like scarier than that. On that note, you learned some skills from that. Are there any soft skills that you learned throughout your career that you didn't think you'd need, but then you found out afterwards that was definitely important?
Yeah, I think soft skills is one of those things, especially in like technical industries like engineering, that are kind of almost like, if they're not forgotten about, they're not given like a lot of focus. And actually those soft skills are the things that are going to help you stand out, especially when you've got, like at an interview, you've got maybe 10 other people there who have got incredibly similar skills to you, because that's why you've all been picked for the interview. And having those soft skills and having the ability to network, to kind of like big yourself up, to be able to kind of complete like team working tasks if you need to do that in assessment center, like those soft skills are what will elevate you from like being good to like getting the job. I think it's kind of difficult to pin like a single example, because I think kind of it's one of those things that you just build on every day as you go through university, especially doing former student, like going through W series, kind of like having that kind of building up that resilience after things go badly. And then kind of throughout my career at McLaren, like meeting new people, like working out how to I don't want this to sound like manipulative, like how to make people do what you want, but like how to kind of like work with people, build relationships to be able to get kind of like beneficial results for both of you out of it. I think it's one of those things that you have to commit to doing every day.
Yeah, I completely agree. So I'm just so ambition and determination would definitely be some of the big ones there, and having those role models kind of really ingrain them in us. So who were your role models kind of that inspired you to maybe get into the motorsports industry when you were younger, pursuing mechanical engineering,
Yeah, I'm going to get so much flack for this because I already do whenever I tell anybody this. But I remember seeing an interview on TV with Rob Smedley. Must have been when I was like early teens. And it's the first time that it clicked to me that you could get paid for working in F1. And it wasn't just a driver getting paid. It was like a team of people, and it was like engineering, and it was kind of like technical and scientific and all the stuff that I was really interested in. I remember just being like, oh my God, that's a career. Like, that's a job. You can do that, and people will pay you to do that. And it was kind of then that I started kind of looking more into kind of the technical side of F1 rather than just watching it kind of as a sport, and seeing kind of them more female representation on the grid, even though it was still small, like seeing people like Claire Williams on the grid, seeing people like Manisha Kulturban kind of like made me be like, okay, there's a space for me there, like there's a place there, there's other people who, look like me who are there kind of at the forefront. And it was one of those things that I always love to see, and it's one of the things I still look out for even when I'm doing race support. It's one of the things I always clock, like if if on like the feed there's like a female engineer or a female mechanic that I've not seen featured before, I'm like, another one, like amazing, like there's more, like we're like taking over really slowly. I think like even people who like, you don't even need to know their name, you don't even really need to know their role, just seeing them there doing their role and like, doing it as part of the team, I think is one of those things that just inspires it inspires me still. So I think it inspires anybody watching.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Like one of my inspirations is Claire Williams, because you don't think of it because all the other team captains are males and then she was the only female. You're like, oh, I can do it. Yeah. Even like Charlotte Stefan, who's on McLaren, being being Carlos Sainz one, you could see her when he was doing interviews and all the other guys had males. And you're like, oh, and then my friends who aren't even engineering, they're like, I can work in F1, like it's possible.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's a thing that's so great, that seeing those women in the roles, whatever the roles are, is still amazing. And especially, Charlotte's amazing as well. She's like so good at her job as well. And it's amazing to see other women out there like excelling and just absolutely going for it.
Yeah, because when we had done a talk recently, and they'd all mentioned that the one thing lacking when they were younger was the female inspirations and like people they could look up to and do the job. So it's amazing these days that you can even like just pick them off straight away and be like, there are these women here. Especially like knowing that previously, I feel like we would have had a lot more people. So what opportunities like when you were younger, opportunities aren't really known of in motorsports, especially in Ireland. And what opportunities would you wish you knew about before? Like,
I think I didn't realize how willing people are to help. If you have like an interest, like people are busy and not everyone's going to be able to help. But like if you fire off a couple of emails or, physically go to like a garage or something that's like, most towns have a garage nearby. Most people are going to be really excited that you're excited about something that they do, and are going to want to show you and going to want to help you kind of experience that. And I think those, like what might seem kind of quite insignificant moments or interactions can play a huge part in your career path. And I think one of the things that I think is really important is getting like, especially younger girls, like getting them to see that this is absolutely a career path and a like opportunity for them. And I think if more girls just went and spent like a week in a garage, it might be only 1 in 10 go, yeah, I want to do this. But if they hadn't have had that experience, they might not have done that. And I think just kind of breaking down those stereotypes and those barriers that occur from such a young age just can help completely open the door for so many young girls into getting into this area.
Yeah, completely. And in Ireland at the moment, we have F1 in Schools Ireland, and
yes,
there were quite a few of them following us on Instagram, and they're keeping up with Femuary and everything. And there were a few of them at our event, so it was really good to see that we're kind of trying to help inspire them maybe to consider careers in engineering and STEM and stuff. And also, so at our talk last week, it was quite interesting because we had speakers from a broad range of areas. We had drivers, we had people doing motorsports marketing, and we had Sylvia Bello. And so people didn't even kind of consider the marshalling side of it before. So it was kind of interesting to kind of, get everyone to consider all the opportunities, not just driving, So what kind of advice would you give to maybe people still in school that are considering doing engineering, that might be kind of thinking whether they want to or not?
I think what is so important is because I don't know what it's like in Ireland, but definitely in England, like engineering isn't a subject that's taught at school, and therefore it's kind of difficult to know like what engineering is at school. And so I think it's one of those things that it is so exciting. It's literally just problem solving, like creative problem solving. And I think if more people understood that, they'd realize like, oh yeah, like there's no reason why that isn't something that sounds really cool and that I'd be like good at and want to know more about. But I think going out and kind of seeking more information and more experience will help you so much, especially at that age, because every like little thing that you do at school and like kind of in your first couple of years, like if you're at college as well, they can help you kind of build the rest of your career. Because it might be like at that age you kind of experience a bit of engineering, you really like it, but you're more of a fan of like the hands-on aspect, so then you look at apprenticeships instead. And it might be that if you hadn't had that kind of pivot point at that age, you might have kind of gone through university and like started a career and then realized actually you wanted to do something more hands-on. And if only you'd known about it earlier, you could kind of like make those decisions that are right for you earlier on. So I just encourage anyone, I think especially things like F1 in school are great to kind of give you that first kind of like taste of what engineering involves. I just seek out projects like that and information, seek out people who are doing a job that you think might be something you want to do one day, and kind of understand what you enjoy about that and what you don't. And that will help you so much when it comes like to choosing those kind of like those pivot point decisions down the line.
Yeah, it's so true that you don't know what engineering is though before you started. I remember I read a book, there's like Think Like an Engineer by like Guru Madhavan, I think it is. I remember reading, I was like, oh, is this something I want to do? Like it's normal stuff, it's not that hard. But it's perceived so much harder than it is. But it's quite time consuming, so I can't lie. Like I don't have much of a social life at the moment.
Yeah. Especially a Formula student. I found like doing Formula student, my social life was the build room and what was going on in that. Like outside of that was just, it was just a different world for me.
I think I prefer that right now. My life is Zoom calls because I'm on 3 departments as well. Like I don't know why I do this. I'm on chassis, so like I feel your love for the chassis, but I'm on biz ops and autonomous and nothing. Like it's just call after call. My friend's like, can we do a call? I'm like, I have 3 other calls. It's not happening. But yeah, well, thank you very much for joining us today. You gave us such good insights into every aspect of being an F1 engineer and being a performance engineer. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been really lovely to kind of chat through a little bit about what I do and just kind of chatting generally about engineering with like 2 other women in the industry. It's been really great. So thank you.